If you told me a year ago that the fate of a $1 billion company would come down to the night cleaning lady, I'd have laughed you out of the building, yet here we are. Some folks chase power in corner offices, but me? Every night, I just try to make it through another shift unnoticed, invisible as always. I cleaned the same glass desks where executives brokered deals, swept the marble floors that saw more expensive shoes in a week than I'll ever own in a lifetime. What they didn't know, and frankly, what they didn't care to learn, was that the invisible cleaning lady had a master's in linguistics and a sharp ear for languages, especially Korean, thanks to my late grandmother. Yeah, that happened. And it changed everything. The night Graham Whitmore's empire started to crumble, I was making my usual rounds, vacuum humming, the building all but empty except for me and Frank, the night guard who was just decent enough to learn my name. As I was emptying out a wastebasket, my eye caught a memo with Korean scribbled in the margins. Old habits die hard. I couldn't help noticing a translation error. Someone had botched a formal honorific, something that in Korean business culture could wreck a deal faster than a spilled cup of coffee. Let me back up a sec. My grandmother always told me that language isn't just words, it's respect. The wrong honorific isn't a typo. It's a slap in the face. And at Whitmore Industries, those kinds of slaps were adding up, one mistranslated document at a time. I'd gotten used to seeing those mistakes in the trash, mentally correcting them as a silent act of rebellion. You know what I mean? When you've got student debt, but you're scrubbing floors for a living, every little victory matters. That night, as I worked my way up to the executive floor, always my last stop for the soft carpet, I heard the CEO himself, Graham Whitmore, chewing out his team behind a cracked office door. He was furious. The Daewon Group, a massive Korean conglomerate my grandmother used to mention with pride, was threatening to walk away after 3 years of negotiations. The cause? Translation mistakes. That's what came down to. 3 years, millions of dollars sunk by a pronoun. I shouldn't have been listening, but you try walking away when the big boss is melting down over the one thing you're secretly good at. I kept moving, trying to be invisible, even as Graham demanded a real translator who actually knows what they're doing. Later, as I was cleaning the executive lounge, I found confidential documents soaked with coffee, more translation mistakes, more arrogance disguised as corporate efficiency. A harried executive barged in, snapped at me to hurry up, and dismissed my suggestion about possible translation issues with a wave of his hand. "Just clean it up," he said. That was the reality of my world. But something changed in me that night. The mistakes weren't just technical, they were disrespectful. No wonder Daewon was offended. As I finished cleaning, the direct line for overseas calls rang and rang. It wasn't my place to answer, but at midnight, with all the suits locked in their crisis meeting, I picked up. Rapid Korean on the other, in too fast for me to catch every word, but enough to know this was a final warning. Thursday, last chance, show proper respect, or it's over. I scribbled what I could remember on a notepad, tucked it in my pocket, and kept moving. On the bus home, I pieced together shredded memos and news clippings, trying to make sense of the chaos. When I finished, the picture was clear. This was about more than grammar. It was about dignity. That's when I made a choice. I spent all night at my kitchen table, translating the key points of the deal the right way, using the honorifics my grandmother drilled into me. I wasn't supposed to know any of this. I wasn't even supposed to exist. But as dawn broke, I folded up my translation, put it in my pocket, and told myself tomorrow's problem could wait. The next night, Whitmore's executive floor was buzzing, stock prices dropping, boardroom emergency meetings, press getting wind of the mess. My hand shook as I slipped my anonymous translation onto the desk of Trevor Phillips, the company's head translator. No name, no note. Then I vacuumed the halls like nothing happened, half terrified I'd get caught, half hoping I'd made a difference. The following day, I checked the business news before heading to my second job at the grocery store. Whitmore's stock was tanking. The Daewon deal was officially on life support. Maybe they'd ignored my translation. Maybe it was already too late. That night, I made a desperate move. I called Whitmore's international line from payphone, faked a consultant's voice, and left a message for Graham. Fix the honorifics, apologize directly, and stop acting superior. It was risky, but I couldn't stand by and watch a disaster I could have prevented. The rush of fear and pride was like nothing I'd ever felt. Then, something wild happened. Whitmore's crisis team used my anonymous translation in their final meeting with Daewin. News broke that negotiations were back on, stock rebounded, and for a brief moment, I felt like I mattered even if no one knew it was me. But someone did. Notes started showing up on my cleaning card. Nice translation work. Who are you? Does Graham know? I ignored them, afraid the spotlight would turn on me and I'd lose everything. One Friday night, while cleaning late, I met Sudhi Maroro, the junior marketing associate. Unlike the other suits, she saw me scared if I spoke Korean, offered a business card, even talked to me like a human being. It was the first time I felt visible at Whitmore. But just as quickly, more ominous notes appeared. The board knows someone helped. Be careful, invisible woman. Suddenly, I wasn't just the cleaner who saved the company. I was a liability, a secret to be managed. The day when executives arrived in person that Monday, I was ordered to make myself invisibly no vacuuming, no noise, just dust and go. But as I cleaned near the conference room, I overheard the lead translator botch another honorific. I couldn't help myself. I muttered the correction under my breath. A Korean executive heard me, called me into the room, and before I knew ITI was speaking fluent Korean in front of the CEO and the entire delegation. It was as if time froze. Suddenly, everyone saw me, the invisible woman brought into the light. Chairman Park nodded, impressed. Graham, caught off guard, had no choice but to acknowledge me. After the meeting, security brought me to Graham's office. He grilled me about my background, my arrest, a language protest, why I was working as a cleaner instead of a translator. I told him the truth. I'd been overlooked, shut out by a system that values pedigree over potential. In a twist worthy of a movie, Graham offered me a position on the cultural intelligence team, but when I pushed back demanding real responsibility, not just a token role, he wavered. I refused to be anyone's prop. Suspended with pay, I left the office not knowing if I'd have a job to come back to. And as I walked into the night, someone across the street snapped a photo. By morning, my story had gone viral. Cleaning lady saves Whitmore's billion-dollar deal. Suddenly, everyone wanted a piece of Naomi Carter. I lost my grocery store job due to distraction. Recruiters filled my inbox and media requests piled up. Sudhi, now my confidant, urged me to seize the moment. I did a podcast, told my story on my terms, and just like that, I became a symbol for overlooked talent everywhere. Within days, Whitmore's board demanded Graham offer me a real position. The Daewin Group insisted I be included in all future negotiations. Offers poured in from rival companies and consulting firms hoping to ride my wave of viral fame. Even as Graham tried to do damage control, it was clear the old hierarchy couldn't put the genie back in the bottle. I negotiated for a real team, real authority, and got it on my terms. Building that team, I didn't look for Ivy League MBAs. I found a male clerk fluent in Portuguese and German, a barista who'd worked as a refugee translator, an executive assistant who'd lived on 3 continents. Real people, real stories. The corporate skeptics hated it, but when my team saved another major deal, the tide started to turn. Of course, not everyone wanted me to succeed. Derek Vaughn, head of the old communications department, leaked emails, tried to frame me as insubordinate, and even resorted to corporate sabotage to tank the Daewin deal for personal gain. With the help of my team and Sudhi, we set a linguistic trap, tracked the leaks, and exposed the entire conspiracy in front of the board. Derek and his cronies were hauled out by security, still spitting threats. As Whitmore rebuilt, I was finally recognized not just as a token, but as the architect of something new. Graham publicly admitted the company's failures, included me in a new leadership council, and began dismantling the rigid hierarchy that had kept people like me in the basement. My journey from invisible cleaner to boardroom influencer hit the headlines and even landed me a keynote at the United Nations Global Business Forum. But here's the kicker. This wasn't just my story. It was a wake-up call to everyone who's ever overlooked someone based on their badge, their uniform, or their past. The real talent might be sweeping the floor right now, or making your coffee, answering your calls after hours. Maybe you pass by them every day without a second thought. So, tell me, what talent are you overlooking right now? Drop your thoughts below. Was justice done? Did I get lucky? Or did the system finally wake up? I want to hear your take. Like, subscribe, and let's keep this conversation alive because sometimes the invisible hand moves the whole damn world.